Welcome everybody to Devotees Speaks for August. Glad you guys could join us, and we'll start with a chant. Om Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Today, on this beloved evening, we're going to have, well, afternoon actually, we're going to have 4 segments. The first one will be a Shrikatan by Swati Risbud and Mangesh Risbud on tabla. Then we're going to have Carlos allowing us to listen to him present some Ramprasad poetry, followed by a little bit of music. And then we're going to have Roshni with a presentation on Sri Aurobindo, followed up by Cheryl presenting on Swami Ramakrishnananda, Grace and Effort. I hope you guys enjoy. I know I will. Open your hearts, open your minds, and let these sweet reminders of who we are play with our consciousness at this moment. We'll go ahead and start.
Thank you, David. So I'm going to start with one of the well-known stotras, hymns of Sri Adi Shankaracharya. The reason I picked this hymn is the message of this hymn. Swami Vivekananda, in all his writings, has constantly stressed upon the message of this hymn, which is Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham. So it's called Atma Shataka or Nirvana Shataka. So I'm going to start with that. It's a very well-known hymn, so if you want to join me, feel free to join me to sing it. The tune I'm going to sing today is composed by my mother, Mrs. Leela Godbole. There is a short story behind the hymn, so I'll just quickly tell you that story. When Sri Adi Shankaracharya, at a very young age, walked miles and miles looking for his guru, and when he reached the cave of Guru Govindapada, he called his name from outside the cave. And the Guru from inside asked, Who are you? Who are you? And in response to that question, he composed this hymn right then and there, and which is the essence of his Advaita Vedanta philosophy. The first, it's a Atma Shataka, so it's a 6 verses. The first 5 verses explain his philosophy of neti neti, which is not that, I'm not this, I'm not that, I'm not manobuddhi ahankara, I'm not father, I'm not mother. But the last verse explains who I am. So that's the whole composition of Atma Shataka. So I'll start with that. I am suffering from a lot of allergies and cold, so please pardon my voice. मनोबुद्ध्यहङ्कारचित्तानि मनोबुद्ध्यहङ्कारचित्तानि न च श्रोत्रजिह्वे न च घ्राणनेत्रे न च श्रोत्रजिह्वे न च घ्राणनेत्रे न च व्योमभूमिर्न तेजो न वायु चिदानन्दरूप शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं चिदानन्दरूप शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं चिदानन्दरूप 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 शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहम् न च प्राणसंज्ञो न वै पञ्चवायु न वा सप्तधातुर्न वा पञ्चकोश न वा पाणिपादौ न चोपस्थपायु चिदानन्दरूप शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं चिदानन्दरूप शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं नन्दरूप न मे द्वेषरागौ न मे लोभमोहौ मदो नैव मे नैव मात्सर्यभावः न धर्मो न चार्थो न कामो न मोक्षः चिदानन्दरूप शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं चिदानन्द न पुण्यं न पापं न सौख्यं न दुःखं न मन्त्रो न तीर्थं न वेदा न यज्ञा अहं भोजनं नैव भोजन् न भोक्ता चिदानन्दरूप शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं चिदानन्द न मे मृत्युशङ्का न मे जातिभेद पिता नैव मे नैव माता न जन्म न बन्धुर्न मित्रं न गुरुर्नैव शिष्यः न बन्धुर्न मित्रं गुरुर्नैव शिष्यः चिदानन्दरूप शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहम् अहं निर्विकल्पो निराकार रूपो अहं निर्विकल्पो निराकार रूपो अहं निर्विकल्पो निराकार रूपो विभुर्व्याप्य सर्वत्र सर्वेन्द्रियाणां विभुर्व्याप्य सर्वत्र सर्वेन्द्रियाणां सदा मे समत्वं न मुक्तिर्न बन्धः चिदानन्दरूप शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं चिदानंद रूप शिवोहम शिवोहम चिदानंद रूप चिदानंद रूप चिदानंद रूप चिदानंद रूप चिदानंद रूप शिवोहम शिवोहम चिदानंद रूप शिवोहम शिवोहम चिदानंद रूप शिवोहम शिवोहम. माझं The next bhajan I'm singing is also a very popular bhajan, so feel free to join me. Originally, this bhajan is sung by one of the greatest singers of Gwalior Gharana, Pandit D.V. Paluskar, and then the Nightingale of India's film music, Lata Mangeshkar, made this very popular. So I'll sing that bhajan. It's about Lord Rama. And the last stanza, it is by Santa Tulsidas. And the last stanza explains, to me, I feel, again, the philosophy of becoming one with God. And the last stanza, the words say, रघुवर छवि के समान रघुवर छवि बनिया ठुमक चलत रामचंद्र. ठुमक चलत रामचंद्र ठुमक चलत रामचंद्र बाजत पैंजनिया ठुमक चलत रामचंद्र बाजत पैंजनिया ठुमक चलत रामचंद्र बाजत पैंजनिया ठुमक चलत रामचंद्र. किलकी किलकी उठत धाय किलकी उठत धाय किलकी उठत धाय किलकी उठत धाय गिरत भूमि लटपटाय गिरत भूमि लटपटाय गिरत भूमि लटपटाय धाय मात गोदलेत धाय मात गोदलेत धाय मात गोदलेत दशरथ की रनिया ठुमक चलत रामचंद्र बाजत पैंजनिया ठुमक चलत रामचंद्र. अंचल रज अंग झारी अंचल रज अंग झारी विविध भांति को दुलारी विविध भांति को दुलारी तन मन धन वारी वारी तन मन धन वारी तन मन धन वारी वारी कहत मृदु बचनिया ठुमक चलत रामचंद्र बाजत पैंजनिया ठुमक चलत रामचंद्र. विद्रुम से अरुण धर विद्रुम से अरुण धर बोल चारु सुभग नासिका में चारु लटकत लटकनिया ठुमक चलत रामचंद्र ठुमक चलत रामचंद्र बाजत पैंजनिया ठुमक चलत रामचंद्र तुलसीदास अति आनंद तुलसीदास अति आनंद तुलसीदास अति आनंद देख के मुखार विंद देख के मुखार विंद रघुवर छवि के समान रघुवर छवि के समान रघुवर छवि के समान रघुवर छवि बनिया ठुमकी चलत रामचंद्र बाजत पैंजनिया ठुमकी चलत रामचंद्र 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 बाजत पैंजनिया ठुमकी चलत रामचंद्र
While they're getting the camera set up, we're going to go ahead and give a big thank you to you guys. That was beautiful. Really enjoyed the Shirka time. Thank you so much. Next up, we're going to have Carlos with some poetry by Ramprasad, followed by a short song by Ramprasad also. So a little bit more music in the program today.
Can I close? So I put this here. Hello, thank you for being here. So, can you hear me? Yes? Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Saha Vidyam Karabhavahai Tejasvi Namaditamastu Ma Vidvishabhai Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Very good. So the first thing that I want to do is to apologize because I realize that many of you are Bengalis and are much more familiar with Ramprasad Sen than myself, and probably read Bengali and have grown up listening to his songs in Bengali. So me talking to you about Ramprasad Sen is a little bit like talking to an Argentinian about tango. And I feel that I need to explain why I'm talking about Ramprasad Sen, because I don't read Bengali, and I have only recently listened to the songs. I'm talking to you about Ramprasad Sen because it helped. I got to know about Ramprasad Sen through Sri Ramakrishna and the gospel, of course. And then I was interested in his poetry, and I looked at the existing translations. There's not so many. I brought a few books here with me. I think that there's only one book that basically in English it's completely dedicated to Ramprasad Sen's poetry. It's by Leonard Nathan and Clinston Seeley. They're not my favorite translations. Some better translations, and in this very beautiful book called Singing to the Goddess, Poems to Kali and Uma from Bengal by Rachel Fell McDermott. She's another scholar. And I found some beautiful translations in a little book called Ramprasad, the Melodious Mystic by Swami Buddhananda. Ramprasad has also been translated to French, and the School of Oriental Studies has a very beautiful book of French translations, but otherwise, it's not so widely translated in English. Most of Ramprasad Sen's poems existed as songs. He, basically composed them as songs and have been sung for centuries. Only the first biographer of Ramprasad Sen was Ishvara Chandra Gupta, and he published a short biography of Ramprasad Sen in 1853. And that was approximately more than 70 years after Ramprasad then presumably died. So the biographical facts are not very precise. We don't know a lot about the historic Ramprasad Sen. We know that he was born in Bengal. It can be around 1718 or 1720, and he died around 1775 or 1781. So there's variation in the dates. And when looking about the historical figure, what is more confounding is that there are two Ramprasads, apparently. One Ramprasad that was in what is now West Bengal, and one Ramprasad in what is now East Bengal. The Ramprasad that we're most familiar with, the one that has come to shape the biography through tales and through stories, is the son of an Ayurvedic doctor who was poor for most of his life, although favored by the local aristocracy, and who was, single-heartedly devoted to the goddess and composed these extraordinary songs. In some of the songs, he said that he composed more than 100,000 songs, but only 321 songs have been compiled. And some of those songs, as I said, could have been attributed to another Ramprasad Sen who signs as a Brahmin, and the Ramprasad Sen that we're most familiar with being, the son of an Ayurvedic doctor was not a Brahmin. Of this somewhat mythical Ramprasad Sen, which is so alive for many of you, we know that he composes extraordinary songs, that he was a devotee of the goddess, that he was favored by queens, that he was one working as an accountant, but writing the name of Kali in the accounting books. And instead of being punished, he was given a stipend so he could continue making his songs. And we know that he was sung so beautifully that whenever people would hear it, he would be enchanted. He would go to the Ganges and sing in the Ganges. And one local Muslim ruler who would pass by would be enamored with his songs and invite him to sing about Kali. We know that he ended his life by, going to the river and an image of Kali at the end of Durga Puja. At the end, we know he would just simply dissolve in the waters of the Ganges. So we don't know a lot about the historical Ramprasad. We have a much more powerful figure of the mythical Ramprasad. We have a body of songs that were repeated orally for centuries. So a possibility is also that those songs were changed or altered by people as they were sung. And what we have in those songs is, and what I feel attracted me, is like an extraordinary poetry. And I'm going to read 10 songs, and I hope even in English some of that will come through. But also what I found in Ramprasad Sen is a way of talking to Mother. I think that the way in which he talks to Mother, to me, having come from a different culture and a different part of the world, was absolutely revelatory. Because there's an intimacy in the way in which he relates to Mother that I think is inspiring and exemplary and unique in many, many ways. And the interesting thing from the poetic perspective is that he didn't talk to, he spoke to a figure of Mother that was shaped by tradition. And one can say that there are three stands that converge in his figure of, on the figure of Mother that Ramprasad sings to. One is the Puranic goddess, the goddess of the Chandi, and this the warrior goddess, the very powerful Durga and Kali emerging out from Durga and fighting the enemies in the battlefield. There's also a folk goddess, which was apparently very present in the life of Bengal. There's also a tantric goddess. He was a tantric practitioner, and many of his songs are recommendations about tantric practice. So all of that converge in Ramprasad and create this incredibly powerful figure that he's able to talk as if discovering anew. Each of these songs, even though we might know these images of Kali in the battlefield, or the images of relating to the goddess as the daughter in the folk tales, they come anew in Ramprasad. They feel like you're discovering for the first time. And for me, reading this in English in translation, some of them not excellent translations, I could feel that presence. And so that's what I would like to share with you. I'm going to read 10 songs, and I'm going to wear my reading glasses. I'm of that age. The first is, there's two translations by Leonard Nathan and Clinton Seeley. Why should I go to Kashi? At her feet, you'll find it all. Gaia, the Ganges, Kashi. Meditating in my lotus heart, I float on blissful waters. Her feet are red lotuses, crammed with shrines, and her name spoken consumes evil like a fire in a pile of dry cotton. If there is no head to worry, you can have a headache. Every time I hear about Gaia, the offerings there, the good deeds recited, I laugh. I know Shiva has said that dying at Kashi saves, but I know too that salvation always follows worship around like a slave. And what's this salvation if it swallows the saved like water in water? Sugar I love, but haven't the slightest desire to merge with sugar. Ramprasad says with amazement, grace and mercy in her wild hair. Think of that, and all good things are yours. Mother, incomparably arrayed, hair flying, stripped down, you battle dance on Shiva's heart, a garland of heads that bounce off your heavy hips, chop off hands for a belt, the bodies of infants for earrings, and the lips, the teeth like jasmine, the face a lotus blossom, the laugh, and the dark body boiling up and out like a storm cloud, and those feet whose beauty is only deepened by blood. So Prasad cries, my mind is dancing. Can I take much more? Can I bear an impossible beauty? So amazing. So I'm going to read one translation by Swami Buddhananda. And Swami Buddhananda's collection of Ramprasad poetry and his narrative is actually quite beautiful. It's not so keen on the historical facts, more on the mythical figure, but traces the path of enlightenment of Ramprasad. So many poems of Ramprasad are poems of despair. Mother, you deceive me. Mother, I cannot reach you. Mother, or poems in which he is very full of sorrow. But it's interesting that in Swami Buddhananda, he organizes the corpus so you see a path, a path to enlightenment, and you see, songs, of an enlightened being towards the end of the collection. So we're not going to get there yet, but one station in that path. Is Mother only Shiva's wife? To her must needs bow down the all-destroying king of death. Naked, she roams about the world, slaying her demon foes, or stands erect on Shiva's breast. Her feet upon her husband's forms, what a strange wife she makes. My mother's play, declares Prasad, shatters all rules and laws. Strive hard for purity, O mind, and understand my mother's ways. So we're going into poems that are very instructive and instructional, and I'm going to read a few of those. And these are Rachel McDermott's translations. What's the fault of the poor mind? Shyama, you're the magician's daughter. It dances as you make it dance. You are action, virtue, and vice. I figure out your secret. Ma, you are earth. You are water. You make fruit ripen on the tree. You are power. You are devotion. You are even liberation, says Shiva. You are sufferance. You are happiness. So it's written in the Chandi. Prasad says, the thread of attachment is spun by action's will. Crazy Kali and crazy Shiva bind souls with it and make them play. Brother, this world is nothing but a bamboo box, so I roll about it, my bazaar of bliss. Earth, water, fire, wind, and sky, these five make an ordered world. First, gross matter, then consciousness. Together, produce myriad forms like suns, multiplied on water in earthen balls. But without the balls, there's just one sun. I sat like an ascetic in the womb, but now I've fallen to the ground. I swallowed dirt. A midwife cut my umbilical cord. Who am I to cut illusion's chains? Women charm speaking sweetly, but there's poison, not nectar in that cup. In the past, I drank to my heart's content. Now I writhe, burning with venom. Ramprasad says with joy, primordial woman of the primordial man, do whatever you please, mother, you, the daughter of a stone. Supreme Savior of sinners, awarding the fruit of highest bliss, grant the shade of your feet to this very wretched one, wife of Shankara. In your great goodness, be merciful to me, deliverer, Ma. I've committed sins, I've got no merit, and as for prayers, I am empty. Take your form, Tara, and rescue me, Mother of the universe. Your feet are my boat. They carry me over the sea of becoming. Be gracious to Prasad, Baba's housewife. The world's a shoreless ocean. There's no crossing it. But I bank on your feet and the treasure of your company. Rescue me, Tarini, in my distress. I see the waves, the bottomless waters, and shiver in terror. I might drown and die. Be merciful. Save your servant. Harbor me now in your boat, your feet. The tempest storms without lull, so too my shaking body. I am repeating your name, Tara, the essence of the world. Fulfill my desire. Prasad says, time has passed. I haven't worshipped Kali, and life is gone, unfruitful. So free me from these worldly bonds, Mother Tarini. Without you, to whom shall I give my burden? Oh, my mind, worship Kali any way you want. Just repeat the mantra your teacher gave you, day and night. Think that you're prostrating as you lie on your bed and meditate on the mother while you sleep. Go about town and imagine you're circumambulating Shamama. Each sound that enters your ears is one of Kali's mantras. Each letter of the 50 around her neck bears her name. Ramprasad says, astonished, the goddess full of Brahman is in every creature. When you eat, think that you're making an offering to Shamama. Black clouds have risen in my sky, and my mind, my peacock, dancing, prancing in joy, thundering ma, ma, ma. Clouds clash, bedecking mountains with lightning flashes, smiles of bliss. There's no stopping me, no rest for me. Water rains from my eyes, soothing my heart's thirsty bird. After this life, there's the next, and so many still to come. Not for me, says Ramprasad. No more birth, no more wombs. And the last one, it's for my son. It's my son's favorite. It's very sad. I'm sorry to. I wanted to read the Song of Liberation before I read this because I think it's particularly beautiful and very sad. And this is the one that we've chosen to play as a song. Human rebirth is the hope of hopes. But my coming into the world was just coming and came to nothing in the end. A bee imagines a painting to be the real lotus and stubbornly hovers near. Mother, you tricked me with words and fed me neem leaves, saying they were sugar. My mouth slavered for sweet, but tasted only bitter. You have cheated me my whole life long. You put me on earth saying, it's time for us to play. But the game you played only disappointed me. Ramprasad says, this outcome of the game of existence was always meant to be. Now night falls. Come and take your child home. So we can play it now?
মিঠার লোভে তিতো মুখে
Excuse me, sir. How?
And it's very interesting, just what you just said, you can search about him in Google. Pananal Bhattacharya was such a devotee of Mother Kali. He used to always sing Shama Sangit. And then he felt so much in despair that he was not able to see the vision of Kali. At 36 age of, when he was 36 years old, he committed suicide because he couldn't get the vision of Mama Kali. We can hear that pain in the song. Sorry to end with that such a sad note. It's Viraha Bhakti, right?
Thank you, Carlos. Thank you so much. Next up, we'll have Roshni on Sri Aurobindo. We'll take a moment to set up the screen. You can come on up, Roshni.
Good morning, everyone. We all know the importance of August 15th. In 1947, India gained her independence from the British rule. But exactly 75 years before that, on this day in 1872, Bengal witnessed the birth of one of her most prominent freedom fighter, philosopher, and a yogi. Sorry about that. Aurobindo Ghosh was a child of a bifurcated world. His father, Dr. Krishnadhan Ghosh, was a surgeon and a member of the Brahmo Samaj, and was so enamored with Western progress that it was his dream that his sons enter the Indian civil service. To pursue his father's dreams, young Aurobindo was educated at St. Paul's School in London and King's College, Cambridge. And he even qualified for the Indian Civil Service exam. But Aurobindo had no interest in becoming a high-ranking British officer. So he purposely failed the qualifying horse riding test. By then, he had secretly joined the Indian nationalist movement. He returned to India in 1893 at the age of 20 to enter the service of the Maharaja of Baroda. Moving to Calcutta, he became a central figure in the nationalist movement. Through his writings in the newspaper Bande Mataram, he was the first political leader to openly demand for Purna Swaraj, or complete independence. He was the first political leader at that time when most moderates were still petitioning for minor constitutional reforms. I'm sure you know that I'm not here to discuss a nationalist freedom fighter. Political freedom was not his end goal. He wanted India to recover her spiritual strength. As he famously asserted, India was not merely a territory, but Shakti, a living spiritual power. So, what transformed him from a political leader to a yogi and a mystic? In January 1908, he met in Baroda a yogi named Vishnu Bhaskar Lele, who instructed him in meditation. Sri Aurobindo reported that after 3 days of training under Lele, he had a series of tremendous, powerful experiences, which he describes in his own words, that made him see with a stupendous intensity the world as a cinematographic play of vacant forms in the impersonal universality of the absolute Brahman. He also claimed that during this time in Baroda, he made mystical contact with Sri Ramakrishna, who had, of course, passed away decades earlier. Sri Ramakrishna's profound influence on Sri Aurobindo's spiritual development is evident from Sri Aurobindo's statement to one of his disciples. Remember also that we derive from Ramakrishna. For myself, it was Ramakrishna who personally came and first turned me to this yoga. In May 1908, Sri Aurobindo was arrested in connection with the Alipur bomb case. He spent a year in detention, a period that would fundamentally rewrite his life's purpose. Sri Aurobindo claimed to have received instructions in meditation directly from Swami Vivekananda on an occult plane in his jail cell in Alipur. He said, Vivekananda in the Alipur jail gave me the foundations of that knowledge which is the basis of our sadhana or spiritual practice. During his imprisonment, Sri Aurobindo also practiced in earnest the sadhana of the Gita, which led him to a transformative mystical experience. He says in his own words, I looked at the jail that secluded me from men. It was no longer by its high walls that I was imprisoned. No, it was Vasudeva, another name of Krishna, who surrounded me. I walked under the branches of the tree in front of my cell, but it was not a tree. I knew it was Vasudeva. It was Sri Krishna whom I saw standing there and holding over me in his shade. It was Narayana who was guarding and standing sentry over me. I looked at the prisoners in the jail, the thieves, the murderers, the swindlers, and as I looked at them, I saw Vasudeva. It was Narayana whom I found in these darkened souls and misused bodies. It was during this time that Sri Aurobindo continued his prolific writings on yoga and the essays on the Gita. In these essays, Sri Aurobindo would go on to develop and amplify Sri Ramakrishna's philosophy of jnana and vijnana to interpret these Indian scriptures. Thakur in his teachings had explained that jnana is the realization of Atman through the process of neti-neti. Not this, not this. One goes into samadhi through this process of elimination and realizes the Atman. But vijnana means a deeper and more intimate knowledge of the supreme reality. Some have heard of milk, some have seen milk, and some have drunk milk. He who has merely heard of it is ignorant. He who has seen it is a jnani, but he who has drunk it has vijnana. That is to say, a more intimate knowledge of it. After having the vision of God, one talks to him as if he were an intimate relative. That is vijnana. This is in Thakur's words. The jnani dismisses the world as unreal, but the vijnani realizes that God, who in his transcendent aspect is the formless Atman, he has become the universe. In a remarkable essay written around 1912, The Yoga and Its Objects, Sri Aurobindo uses Thakur's teachings on jnana and vijnana to articulate three fundamental stages in spiritual realization. The first essential stage is Advaitic Atmajnana, the knowledge of the one divine impersonal existence. The one may seem to be the only reality and everything else as Maya, a purposeless and inexplicable illusion. Clearly, this first stage corresponds to Sri Aurobindo's own experience of the impersonal Atman under his Guru Lele. In the second stage, one exceeds the merely impersonal realization of Advaita and comes to experience that even the names and the forms are Brahman. The third and the final stage is to perceive all things as God. For Sri Aurobindo and as for Sri Ramakrishna, spiritual experience culminates in the realization that the entire universe is the play or lila of the infinite God who is at once personal and impersonal. This explains Sri Aurobindo's own experiences of Vijnana, especially his realization of Krishna's vision in Alipur jail. Sri Aurobindo also uses Thakur's concept of Jnana and Vijnana to interpret the Gita in his famous Essays on the Gita. Unlike Shankara, the legendary 8th century philosopher who saw Gita through the lens of absolute non-dualism or Advaita, or Ramanuja, the 11th century philosopher who saw it as a testament to a personal, qualified God or Vishishta Advaita, per Shankara, Jnana is the knowledge of the self Atmajnana, and Vijnana is the full experience of that knowledge. Visheshata tadana bhava. There is no possibility of a knowledge superior to Atmajnana, whereas Ramanuja, in his commentary, claims that Jnana is the knowledge of God's essence, while Vijnana is the knowledge of what distinguishes God from all the things in the world. The term Jnana appears much more frequently in the Gita, whereas the term Vijnana appears at 5 places in the Gita: chapter 3, chapter 6, chapter 7, chapter 9, and chapter 18, where it is paired with the term Jnana. Hence, it raises the question of a precise distinction between the two terms, Jnana and Vijnana. According to Sri Aurobindo, the first 6 chapters of Gita focuses primarily on the necessity of Jnana, the realization of the impersonal Atman. These 6 chapters of Gita also stresses the need of realization, the manifest and the unthinkable Atman, like we see in chapter 2. We are reading chapter 2 right now. But also sometimes emphasize Krishna's divine nature as the great Lord of all the Lords in chapter 5, shloka 29. This precise relationship between God and the impersonal Atman remains mysterious in the first 6 chapters. And so, according to Sri Aurobindo, again from his essays on Gita, chapter 7, which is also called the Jnana and Vijnana Yoga, adds a decisive new dimension. It shifts the focus to Vijnana, a richer form of spiritual knowledge that includes and exceeds the knowledge of the impersonal Atman. For instance, Shloka 3 of chapter 7, Manushyanam sahasresu kaschid yatati siddhaye yatatam mapi siddhanam kaschin mama veti tatvata. Sorry for my pronunciation. Sri Aurobindo's interpretation of Shloka 3 of chapter 7 is, among thousands of men, one here and there strives after perfection. And of those who strive and attain to perfection, one here and there knows me in all the principles of my existence. Even among those strivers who have attained perfection of self-realization, only a few achieve what Krishna calls, integral knowledge of the impersonal, personal God or Vijnana. Sri Aurobindo's explanation of chapter 7 uniquely reconciles the impersonal Atman of the path of Jnana and the personal God of the path of bhakti or devotion that we see in the remaining chapters of the Gita from the standpoint of Vijnana, which is otherwise impossible from Advaita perspective. Probably not impossible, but yeah. Chapter 10 of the Gita is especially rich collaboration of the Vijnani's insight into the mystery of God. Krishna, we are told, is not only great Lord of the world in Shloka 3 of chapter 10, but also the impersonal Atman residing in the hearts of all beings in Shloka 20, or Krishna as the Om among words in Shloka 25, and in the final verse, Shloka 42, Krishna points out that his various manifestations in no way exhaust his infinite being. I support this entire universe with a minute portion of myself. From Sri Aurobindo's perspective, the various seemingly contradictory aspects of God mentioned in chapter 10 are reconciled in the experience of Vijnana. The Vijnani alone, according to Sri Aurobindo, realizes that God is at once the impersonal Atman and Lord of the universe, capable of incarnating in human form. This also reminds us of Thakur's metaphor of climbing stairs. All the steps have to be left behind, one by one, in order to reach the roof. In Advaita Vedanta, Jnana is the highest realization. The Jnani dismisses the world as unreal, but the Vijnani realizes that God is the formless Atman and has also become the universe. The Vijnani in Thakur's metaphor is the one who recognizes that the stairs are made of the same materials as the roof. Once released from prison, Sri Aurobindo fled to Pondicherry, which was then under the French colonization. It is in Pondicherry that he pursued his spiritual journey and later established Sri Aurobindo Ashram. On November 24, 1926, it is celebrated as the Siddhi Day. Sri Aurobindo experienced what he described as Krishna consciousness. Immediately following this profound spiritual milestone, Sri Aurobindo withdrew from daily contact with his disciples and the outside world. He placed his spiritual collaborator, Mira Alfassa, also known as Sri Ma or the Mother, in complete charge of the newly formed Sri Aurobindo Ashram. For the remaining 24 years of his life, he stayed confined to his living quarters in complete silence. He ceased giving interviews, public speeches, and engaging in casual conversation. His silence did not mean he stopped communicating entirely. He answered thousands of questions from his disciples through voluminous written correspondences and dedicated his time to compose major philosophical work and epic poetry such as The Life Divine and Savitri. He has a huge, vast body of spiritual and literary work. Here is a list. If you ever get a chance, do read. And yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Roshni. That was wonderful. Very informative. I didn't know that much about Sri Aurobindo, so I learned a lot. So I really appreciate it. Very inspiring. So we've had music, inspiring bhakti, the beautiful poetry, the Ghana knowledge, and now we're going to have Cheryl speaking on Swami Ramakrishnananda, direct disciple. It was his birthday this month, so we're going to talk about him a little bit.
May I remove the computer? Thank you. As you heard, I'll be speaking about Swami Ramakrishnananda. I have some rather sad-looking photocopies, but if you get a chance to look a picture up of him, the thing that struck me most with it was his direct look, his seeming determination, and the sense of firmness, you know, this really, really stalwart fellow. If anyone wants a copy, I do have copies. I'll be reading, well, my main sources were God Lived With Them from Swami Chetananda. I'm very impressed with his writings. I hadn't read any of his work, though I've heard him speak on the YouTube channels. Also read quite a few letters from Vivekananda to Shashi as they corresponded in Ramakrishna's, the complete works of his, primarily volumes 5, I believe maybe 1 and 6 and 7 and 8, those later volumes. And I'm very glad I got to learn about him. So I'll try to just cover a few excerpts and some of the highlights of his love and career with Sri Ramakrishna and his devotion to southern India when he went to Bengal. Okay, the basic stuff first. He was born July 13th, 1863 in Ninchapur, Bengal. And like Swami Vivekananda and Sri Ramakrishna, lived a rather short and intense life. And I'm glad he's a rather intense individual because he accomplished a lot for the service of the Ramakrishna order and for Sri Ramakrishna. He was born in an Orthodox Brahmin family, and his father was an ardent tantric devotee who specialized in all the intricacies of tantric worship and puja. His mother was known as a very pious and reserved lady. Every day she worshiped the family deities. And growing up in this very religious environment, Shashi, as he was known, was also taught priestly duties, the tradition of the family. And they allowed him to take over some of the various household worshipful rituals and ceremonies. He was known for having performed a 24-hour-long puja without getting up for Mother Durga, which is quite the feat. But it did show how devoted he was and how, his focus on what was going on and his attention to the details and the meaning behind all the actions. He was a very intelligent young man, not surprising. And he just was very, very interested in God. And even though he emphasized in mathematics when he was at school, he was always reading different religious books. He was reading, of course, the Bible. He began to learn Persian, to read some of the mystic Sufi poetry, which he had heard about. And he met quite a few other young men in the Brahmo Samaj. And that is how we heard of Sri Ramakrishna. And let's see, he also went to the Brahmo Samaj with his cousin, with whom he lived later on while he was in college. And through Keshav Chandra Sen, he heard about Sri Ramakrishna. And so he and his cousin decided to go see him in Dakshineswar for the first time. And they found Ramakrishna where he did a lot of his teaching, which was on his small couch in his room, very intimate, talking and answering questions of devotees and those that are interested in everything about this God-man. Right away, Sri Ramakrishna noticed that they had come for their first time and invited them to sit with him and ask them questions about themselves. And apparently, he later told Shashi that he immediately saw Shashi and his cousin as previous devotees of the Christ, which was interesting since that was one of the books that Shashi really enjoyed reading was the Bible. So I'm going to open up my book. I really do advise getting a copy of this. It just goes through all the lives of the various devotees of Sri Ramakrishna, the 16 mainly. Forgive me, I'm not very tech savvy, so I don't have a lot of things prepared for PowerPoint. Sri Ramakrishna, when he met Shashi, he did a few things, I think, to kind of test his resolve, as he would with the various people that came to see him. And there's an incident when Swami Ramakrishnananda came firstly to see Sri Ramakrishna. He wanted to touch his feet, that he might take the dust off of them. For in India, in relation to the holy, this is considered the greatest blessing. But Sri Ramakrishna withdrew his feet, and Swami Ramakrishnananda thought that it was because he was unworthy. Afterwards, Sri Ramakrishna told him that it was only to increase his yearning. A small soul full of pride and egotism would have left injured, but a big soul is only filled with greater longing. The message that Sri Ramakrishna was given on that day was very liberal. There are a lot of questions about marriage, and people were like asking him if celibacy and non-marriage was the proper thing to do, and would we offend God if we were to get married? And of course, Sri Ramakrishna, though he admitted the superiority of celibacy and giving your life alone to God for service for him, he did make sure that it was known that marriage was also a blessed situation and that you can also live that way. I am going to move along. If you want me to give this also later on, this little talk, I can do that too. There's so many great incidents in his life. He spent a lot of time caring for Sri Ramakrishna when he had become sick and developed the throat cancer, which was not too long after Shashi met him, actually. He went to the various houses and served him personally, even going so far as to drop out of his schooling in order to be by the master's side every evening to tend to his needs while Mother Sarada Devi got some rest, because she tended for him during the day. The master never condemned any man, he says. This is his recollection. He was ready to excuse everything. He used to tell us that the difference between man and God was this: if a man failed to serve God 99 times, but the 100th time served him with even a little love, God forgot the 99 times he had failed and would say, "Oh, my devotee served me so well today." But if a man served another man well 99 times and the 100th time failed in his service, the man would forget the 99 good times of service and say, "That rascal failed to serve me on one day." If there was the least spark of good in anyone, Sri Ramakrishna saw only that and overlooked all the rest. And if you know Sarada Devi, anything about her life, that was one of her last directions before she had Mahasamadhi, was to overlook people's faults and make the world your own. Let's see. Eventually, he received an ochre cloth and became of the Sri Ramakrishna order. He also was extremely devoted to not only taking care of Ramakrishna during his last days, but also of his relics and ensuring the care of them. He's most well known for his Guru Bhakti, or his Guru Seva. And he was so incredibly dedicated. In fact, one night while Sri Ramakrishna was in his last days, at the middle of the night, he decides he's going to go out and he's going to clean the commode. And Ramakrishna apparently woke up during this time, and it was quite cold, and Shashi was not dressed very appropriately for the weather. And when Shashi came back to the room, Sri Ramakrishna, in his frail condition, had actually gotten up out of bed to retrieve a shawl that was hanging on the wall. And of course, Shashi thought, "Oh, I've neglected my duties and I wasn't here. He became cold, and look, he's on the floor now." But Ramakrishna was okay. But the thing is that Sri Ramakrishna was concerned about him and was distressed that he had gone out into the cold to perform a chore and had not taken a shawl. And, that just shows the love and dedication, not only of the master, but of Shashi himself. So, like I said, we are already 20 minutes past. I don't want to do this, but I would have to skip over perhaps the tour of Holy Mother down in southern India. And there's just really, really lots and lots of fascinating things about him. He taught a lot. He gave extensive lectures all over the place. And he set up several centers and monasteries. To tie in the title, Grace and Effort, I picked that title a little early, and I see now that from the outside, what he accomplished and his dedication and everything, I would see it as an effort. I would see like, oh my goodness, he did all these fabulous, wonderful things in service of Ramakrishna and of his fellow monks. And I don't think it was an effort for him. I think God had endowed him with such grace and such capacity to serve and love his master. You know, maybe the physical body, it did wear and tear. He did become sick eventually and had TB. But even with that, I think that was like the least of his concerns. I don't think he was so much concerned about what was happening to him as to how he was living up to the service and the expectations of him. And of course, Vivekananda writing him the letters before he came back from America was always kind of hammering him on one hand, you know, be very, very liberal in your teaching, you know, avoid sectarianism, you know, so Vivekananda was very, very true to a lot of the different points in Ramakrishna's method, or yeah, his methods and the way he saw things. So he would tell Shashi to take care, but he also emphasized how when those earliest monks were chosen in South Bengal, they didn't, at first, didn't get a whole bunch of people. But that was because Swami Vivekananda had told him, gather a few good men. You know, he did not want people there, not devotees, you know, that accept everybody, but as far as people that would be intimately involved with the running of the monastery and the various centers, he wanted to make sure that those were good, sturdy people. And if you will permit me, I will go ahead and close. But like I said, if you want me to finish and go a little more in depth, I would love to do that. Fabulous, very worth the effort to read this, and I appreciate you letting me speak. And most of all, I thank Thakur, Swamiji, and Mother for helping introduce me to such wonderful people and to God Himself. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Cheryl. We'll have to have a part 2 on another one of Devotees Speaks forum. Sound like you got a lot more material there to share with us. And it was definitely inspiring and illuminating. So thank you so much. And thanks to everyone who participated, everybody who attended. These events are very special to me, and I think they're very special to you by seeing how everyone shows up. And it seems like everyone enjoys the sharing and the learning. And once again, we're reminding each other of what is and who we are through these different forums and teachings and inspirational lives. We'll close with a chant. Om Purnamadat Purnamidam Purnat Purnamidachyate Purnasa Purnamadaya Purnamivavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Shri Ramakrishna Panamastu.